set method, the setter method. You can generate them also directly. Do you know in 2030 that we ask the students to create a set method, get method, and they were not able to do that? Even it's just a few click, right click, and then select on the clips. In the 23, we use the clips, not in our studio. But even this, generate a set method and get method, they don't know how to do generate because they're not familiar with the environment. So you can see here I did a few types. Normally I rely on the Android Studio to create a constructors for me, to create a get method, set method. I just focus on the real implementation, for example, for calculating the BMI. So now I have the set method. To be able to set the height, what should I do? Or the weight? I call dot set height, for example. I change the height to 1.9, and then I can print the model again and see if this is fair. By doing this, I test the model. Is that right? I'm doing the test now to see if this really gonna change the status. This consider an efficient way for a small model. But if you have a big model that you need to test, this will not be an efficient way. You need to rely on some testing mechanisms to test your functionality or your model efficiently. So we go to you can see here, there is two types of tests on the Android Studio. There is Android Studio test here. This is the instrumented test, which is really focused on the test of the app and simulate the existence of end user who interact with your app. Then you test that. And the other test is a traditional Java test, which is the test that we're going to cover today. And this is not part of the course. We're not going to generate the test that simulate the interaction between end user and the app and simulate what is the input of the user and then see the interaction. This is not part of our. We're going to create here the traditional Java test, which is use the JUnit test. So whenever you need to create the class on the test, you go to the test package. This is a package. Right click and then you add a new class. You call the class whatever you like. Let's say a PMI test 2. And this class, it's an empty class for testing your PMI models. So you can test individual methods, you can test the constructors, you can test the get method, set method, all of this you can create individual test units and then you run all these individual test units either alone or all together to generate. So I have created here in this two JUnit tests to test only 2 pounds. This is how you create. Let me just go back here. If you would like to add any JUnit test here or any unit test, you just right click and say generate. I need a test method. It's give you a empty test method. You name it whatever. Let's say I need to test. You start test. I need to test what? Get height. And then you start writing your code to test the JUnit test. Let us see some example that I create. For example, here we need public void test 2 pounds. I create the model with some height and weight, and then I know based on my calculations that if I call 2 pound method, I should have retain a string as 220. So then I ask assert equals. There is a message that I'm going to print it to the user if there is any errors, and if I expected is equal my model.2 pounds. This part, my model.2 pound, represent your implementation. You are testing your models before you put it inside the app. I'm testing the model that I can transfer any kilograms to pound correctly. So I created one JUnit test with some examples that this model with weight 100, and if I use 2 pounds, should transfer this 200 to 220. Then I can run this test individually, or I can run all the tests together. Okay, so another test, I change the BMI model, I expect 99. This is what happened. In the exam, lab test 2, I give you some examples. And I ask you to create a method. For example, if I give you this input array, the average of even numbers will be like this. So these examples, when I evaluate your program, I translate these examples to JUnit test. And also, I add another example that is not seen by you. I did it. So what happened that I found some students, they create a method with this, that if this input, retain this one. If this input, retain this one, like the string number of white spaces inside the string. If this is a string equal to this, retain 4. If this is string, retain 11. But what about other JUnit test cases that I hide it from you, and we need to evaluate? I create another one. Like find the mean and median. I give you examples. Some students, if this is the array, give me this median. They don't do implementation actually. They try to make the implementations as the examples, which is not fair. So that's why we have the JUnit as a powerful method to evaluate. So I can go here and run all the JUnit test, and it's give me the output. If this is JUnit is running or not, you can see here it's passing. That's meaning green, it's passed. 2 test is passing here on this one. Now let's assume that a student who have a wrong implementation for 2 pounds. Okay, so let's say here the students is supposed to divide by this number, and student decide to divide by 0.45. So this implementation should be wrong. So if I run the JUnit test again, you can see that these 2 tests are failed. So this is about evaluating, and you can see here we have expected is 220 and the result is 222. So there is a deviation from what is expected and what is correct. Okay, let us back to the original implementations and discuss another example. Now, sometimes I have another JUnit test, okay, on the examples here on the projects. For example, this is the mortgage model that you create. All of you create this mortgage model, and to be able to test this mortgage model, you can create the main method, as you can see, create the mortgage models and evaluate this one and run the main methods, and then see if the things be compatible with the pencil and papers that you did. Or you can create a JUnit test here inside the test for the mortgage, and you can run this. This is a JUnit test, and you can see here is assert equal, assert true, assert for. There is a lot of assertions on the you can use inside your JUnits, and I can run all of them here. Now, as you can see, I have to go to each one of these JUnit and run it independently. But again, you can have things here built on edit configurations. I need to create a test environment, Android JUnit test. I can name it my test, okay? And then I need to be all packages in the whole projects, okay? And say apply, okay? Then if I run this environment, it will run all the JUnit tests inside my projects. As you can see, all the JUnits here on this side, I run all the JUnits. So assume that you have an app that contains many classes, and for each class you create the JUnit test for it. And in this time, you need to run all the JUnit for your app to make sure you can create an environment where you can run all the JUnits. Any question? So this is all about the JUnit. It's good to learn it by examples, okay? I can talk the lectures hours and hours about the component of JUnits and how to efficiently implement the JUnit, but these examples highlight the actual process that you need to do to test your models. So I create the class for my app, then I would like to evaluate this class. I create many methods, as you can see, either to use the main method approach, where you can write some examples and evaluate, or you can use the JUnit approach by using the traditional way of JUnit by creating the class and test. Any question? Did any one of you use the JUnit before? One? Okay, two? Use it? Okay. Okay, so let us stop the demo and